Hi, my name's Ian. I'm an engineer. I've done some business. I'm a dad. Like many people, I've been worried about climate change, but I am changing my outlook. I'm not, I'm still worried about climate change, but I think there is some stuff to be positive about on the technology front. Primarily, this molecule, nitrogen and hydrogen. It's simple, it's energy dense, it's affordable. It's called green ammonia. And well, I think not only is it good technology, but I want to sort of talk about something that's it's more about leading change. So the more complicated things are, the more hesitant people get, the longer they take to make a decision. Um, the more social proof, you wait for your competition to do it. Things get very complicated, which means slow. So slow, maybe you don't even see any progress at all. Um, I've heard that grants sometimes might actually hold up progress because the grant's unclear, because it's only doled out so many times a year, because the application process is so slow. People focus on the grant rather than just the solution and getting on with things, right? So I want to not, we're going to look at ammonia, but um, let's start with some greenhouse gas stuff. So this is, of course, the big greenhouse gas problem, carbon, right? This is methane. When you burn methane, you get water and carbon dioxide. And that carbon dioxide in the air is going to stay there, right? It's net year after year after year. We just add, right? We were taking fossilized stuff underground and pumping it into the air at an alarming rate, at an incredible rate. So part of how the greenhouse gas gets to the air is power, right? So let's look. This was an interesting article. I'll share it in the notes. Um, California, you know, land of the Tesla, has a fair amount of green power. On the bottom of this, in the darker blue, you have nuclear, then you have hydro, then you have wind, just below the yellow. The yellow is solar. This chart on the x-axis, that is the time of day. So this is averaged across a year, right? And then um, the y-axis is megawatts, right? So during daylight hours, they have lots of solar power, right? But at night, they're using their own gas and they're importing power. And the power they're importing, they don't account for it, but it's gas and coal, right? So they, maybe half their power is green. It's pretty good, right? Um, but it's not green, right? Your Tesla is not green. And then think about the batteries, right? Those batteries are only green after 100,000 miles or something. So this was a couple years ago. People have been talking about batteries, right? Batteries are good. We're batteries. So again, on the bottom, nuclear, and then hydro, and then wind, and then solar. And you have the batteries sort of extending. Now you have to charge up those batteries, right? So they don't have enough capacity. So they're still using gas. On average, they're still using gas the whole day. They're using less, but they're still using gas, right? But those batteries, because the green doesn't line up with the peak, you have to bank it. So you need this expensive system. So we're making progress. Sure. Right. Um, sort of. Texas, Texas is greenlighting $5 billion for new gas plants. Kentucky, they're going to be a sanctuary state for fossil fuels. Ontario. So, we are planning, like many people, many regions, that the adoption of battery technology in vehicles will continue. But I mean, man, I this week I was on a call with a bunch of people, and they were talking about how the LDCs, that like the local utilities, for regulatory reasons, etc., they have no ability to invest. None. They can't they can't do anything. They can't do anything innovative. They all their money comes from ratepayers, and they're restricted in what they can charge ratepayers and for what. So we're projecting this increase, but not doing really the investment. Like it's this web of rules and barriers, and I'm not saying anyone's at fault. It's hard, right? Those rules are in place for good reasons to protect people, but it's hard. So like this is the projection for Ontario, all right? We I mean, nuclear plants, they need maintenance. Everything needs maintenance. So we have a bunch of nuclear coming offline for a period of time. And I mean, we have some renewables, um, but like the gap is gas. We're gonna burn gas. And 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 what did I say before? Complexity slows things down, right? Why isn't there more renewables? The answer is complicated. But I want to go up to 1,000 feet. Okay. Grid. So this chart shows transportation, industrial, residential, commercial. This is the greenhouse gas impact of each of these sectors in the US. And the blue is fuel, and the brownish is electricity, emissions from the electrical grid. So commercial, residential, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that most of their greenhouse impact is from electricity. Industrial, some of it's electricity, some of it's fuel. Transportation, fuel, fuel, fuel. And so, I mean, if you think about it, even if we get these grids all juiced up and the rest of it, how much will the transport actually come down with batteries? I mean, I think the number one thing we need to be going after is fuel. Fuel. And we need a simple solution, not a complex solution, not a complex, massive web of very incremental, very hard won solutions. Again, this is just a different take, but this is the emission sources: natural gas, petroleum, coal. Coal, it's a couple industrial uses and electricity. So can we address that on an individual basis? You and I are not going to influence that, but I think things are in place to replace this. Like it's slow moving, it's complicated, but with petroleum, you and I, we can make choices about petroleum. Natural gas, it's interesting. It's a byproduct of petroleum in a lot of places. Shale oil gives off a lot of cheap natural gas, for example. So if we address petroleum, indirectly, we're influencing gas as well. I think we need to address this fuel thing head on. So before I said ammonia, nitrogen, hydrogen, we've made ammonia for a long time. There's massive supply chain of this. We know how to make it, but historically, for 120 years, we've made it with gas. All right, so we took the gas, the CH4, strip the hydrogen off of it, use that to make the ammonia, and produced a bunch of greenhouse gas. But when I say this is massive, I mean this is more than 5 million barrels a day. There is so much ammonia out there, right? Which means there's supply chain, there's technologies, there's all sorts of things. We know how to handle this. We have all the engineering standards. It's all there. So here's what's happening. Instead of making hydrogen, right? Well, or rather, I guess, in addition to making hydrogen, you take electricity, green electricity, possibly not even connected to the grid, like really simple, put up a turbine, green electricity, that simple. You take that, run a current through water, get some electrolysis going, and you get hydrogen. Now, you don't try to put that in a bus. You take that hydrogen and immediately combine it with nitrogen from the air over a catalyst and create ammonia. Now you've got an energy dense liquid. Okay, a fuel that we can use instead of petroleum. When it combusts, it's nitrogen, hydrogen, combusts with air. So what do you get? You get water and air. That's it, right? This is simple. This is something we can execute on a small scale and scale up to trillions of dollars. 100 million barrels a day. We can, this is simply enough that it can go fast. And it works. It works in all these places where batteries won't, right? If we simply replace the gray ammonia we have today with green ammonia, just that, it has the same impact as making all the planes green. It's a huge impact, right? But not only does it work where ammonia works today, it works on tractors, it works on trains, it works on transport trucks, it works in industry, it works in all these places where your batteries are never going to be the solution, right? So this one thing that's simple to make, infinitely scalable, has all of these applications. So, for example, I keep saying, I earlier said how much gas was used in California, in Ontario, in places that want to be green. Well, instead of using gas, right now available are power plants that can run on green ammonia. They're using them in Japan. They're using them in Indonesia. Okay, and this type of plant, it hasn't been converted in Ontario, but we could just swap out the burner, right? So this is, it's here, it's available, we can just do it. Transport truck, this runs on ammonia. Okay, so instead of waiting around for this Tesla, that the battery energy density is not there. It's not. And we can wait on it and cross our fingers and believe Elon, or we can just go with a solution that works and is 100% green. And it's cheap and it's available. It's many of the projects in the pipeline, they're targeting $500 a ton. Right now, existing projects are like $600 a ton. At $500 a ton, it equates to diesel at $1.13 a liter, at $4.26 a gallon, including distribution. Okay, it's cheap, 100% green. Okay, and there's a supply chain. What happens is the people producing the green ammonia, they use the existing supply chain. There's pipelines all across North America There's like 160 ports that handle this stuff. You can just go buy it. So what, rather than all this complexity, all of the grids and the charging stations and how is gonna your local grid pay for the upgrades, instead of all of that stuff, green fuel and vehicles and power plants and whatever else, just use the green fuel. Use the green fuel, which costs what your fuel today costs. That's it. Let's move the chains. Let's go. All right, that's my message. This is why I am feeling a little bit optimistic. We can just pull the trigger. Let's go. Okay. Have a good day.